Kia ora, good evening. The benefit of collaborative training between emergency services was clear yesterday as fire, police and ambulance executed a textbook evacuation following a gas blast in Invercargill. Fire Service Station Officer Colin Russell says he witnessed an impressive amount of damage before securing the scene for patient and bystander safety with the help of police and ambulance staff. It's understood the explosion was caused by an acetylene gas cylinder. The faulty cylinder was placed in a large steel container full of water before being transported to BOC Gases in Bond Street. One man was injured by the blast and remains in a serious but stable condition at Southland Hospital. The incident is being investigated by WorkSafe New Zealand. The trial of Easy Rider owner Gloria Davis continues today at the Invercargill District Court. Davis and her company face 10 charges laid by Maritime New Zealand in relation to the March 2012 foundering of the fishing vessel Easy Rider in Foveaux Strait that led to the deaths of 8 crew and passengers. The court today heard from sole survivor deckhand Dallas Reddy, who was thrown into the water when the boat went down after being struck by a freak wave. Mr. Reddy explained how he grabbed a petrol can that floated to the surface, emptied it and used it as a flotation device for the next 16 hours before being rescued. The case for the prosecution is expected to conclude tomorrow. Internet safety and risk assessment consultant John Parsons is in the city speaking to groups keen to come to grips with the implication of internet and social networking on people's lives. The Poppycock Trust, whose primary focus is on the health, safety and well-being of Southland's children and young people, has brought Mr Parsons to the region to speak to interest groups and funders. Mr Parsons returns in March to conduct workshops on the potential risks presented by social networking. Hunter Andrews spoke to both Poppycock Trust coordinator Nikki Burns and John Parsons following a lunchtime speech to Invercargill Rotarians.
John, when he first came down, said he couldn't believe the response at a community level. It was quite profound for him personally, as a professional. And I watched in the workshops and you could read the feeling in the room and see people's awareness suddenly open up. And
lights going on.
Yes,
everywhere.
Absolutely. And so, the community response has been very good individually and then obviously with funders coming on board who actually really got the vision. It's been really exciting.
And who will come into contact with John when he does come down in March?
It's entirely up to the community, but who he's connected with so far is school groups, teachers and parents in the school setting, and then we've done health forums, we've done police workshops, social service workshops, so it's really, everybody that is connected with technology.
We're going to bring education into the schools, primary, intermediate and college, that empowers students to use this technology ethically to support themselves, their families and each other.
10 years ago, would you have imagined a profession like yours would be required?
Not to the extent that it is today. Certainly 7, 8 years ago we realised that the way this technology is being used, with the emerging of technology and the applications emerging together, a clear example of that is you've got a phone with a camera on it. We started to understand that it would present issues, but I didn't conceive that back then that it would get to this place. But today, based on the victims that we meet, the people that we work with, it is very much needed.
Without specifics, what sort of problems are you dealing with in schools, or are students dealing with in schools?
The problems, again, and I understand that schools have a contribution to make to this, but as far as bullying and abuse is concerned, in how this technology is used, it's a community issue. I may meet a girl or a boy that's come out of a school that's been bullied or abused, but they've also been bullied at home, in the physical world, with the use of this technology.
Bottom line, is the world a better place or a worse place with all this social networking?
Well, I guess that's a hard question. It depends who you ask. I truly believe in the right to use this technology. I think it's neutral. It's how we use it. It's people that determine the outcomes of it. It connects us with the rest of the world if we choose to engage it like that. So now more than ever, the ability to think about how another person is thinking is what we should bring into education in the form of empathy. So I support its use. I support youth to use this technology. I also want parents to understand that if their children get into a situation, not to overreact. I meet many boys and girls that have been bullied and abused relentlessly for 6 or 7 months at a time. And one of their barriers to come forward and notify this or talk to someone is that they get concerned that their parents will overreact and take the technology off them. That child then is isolated from a good support network. So I support the use of this technology.
The Psychoactive Substances Regulatory Authority has advised retailers that 5 psychoactive products must be withdrawn from the market with immediate effect. AK-47, Anarchy, Karma, Northern Lights Primo and Voodoo have been withdrawn from public sale. The Centres for Adverse Reactions Monitoring and the National Poisons Centre gathered evidence of harm to users of the products. Prior to the Psychoactive Substances Act coming into force last year, there were 200 to 300 legal high products sold from an estimated 3,000 to 4,000 outlets. Now there are 41 products sold from less than 170 outlets nationwide. Still to come on tonight's bulletin, drivers get the hump with a bump at a busy city intersection and recording historic stories of the South. Welcome back. A hump at an intersection in Invercargill is causing concern for motorists. The hump at the intersection of Queen's Drive and Gala Streets has caught some motorists unaware, while others have been taking advantage of the lift the bump offers. Several drivers we spoke to said they believe there's potential for a vehicle to get air even when travelling at legal speed, while others reported doing jumps over the hump or wheelies on scooters. Invercargill City Council Roading Manager Russell Pearson says he's aware of the rise and says it will be rectified.
We were aware of it at the conclusion of the last project, where the shape of the Queen's Drive matched up with Gala Street. So.
And have you had complaints from motorists about it?
We've had a number of people raise the issue with us, so we've been aware of it since that project, but we can't really complete it or correct it until we've actually get this stage of Queen's Drive finished, and that's planned to be undertaken sort of by the end of March.
A survey undertaken by Environment Southland has provided important insights into the culture of recreational whitebaiting in the south. The survey took place last year, targeting registered holders of whitebait stands in the Lower Mataura and Upper Aparima rivers. The results are now helping Environment Southland to improve habitats where whitebait spawn in a bid to increase numbers in southern rivers. Around 3/4 of the 100 respondents said they were happy with their experience, and just over half wanted to see improved water quality as well as more whitebait. Respondents were also asked how much time they spent netting the delicacy.
Out of the 100 results that came back, on average people were spending around about a month's full-time work out there on the river over the fishing period. So that really confirms to us how important it is to Southlanders, which is really good to hear that people are out there and actually enjoying their time out there.
As far as the catch goes, were people happy with the amount that they were getting?
Yeah, it's amazing what some people catch. We had reports of people catching up to 800 pounds in a season, and then down to, I think that same fisherman caught down to about 6 pounds, so there's obviously huge variance in that. One of the things that we would like to look at is what actually drives a good year versus a bad year. Overall, there was a general consensus that what a good year and what a bad year is. And yeah, we'd like to figure out what exactly is driving that. So that's sort of the next step, like linking that with water quality or with local system effects and things like that.
The year is still young, but already the city is welcoming more citizens, with the first ceremony for the 2014 held this morning at the City Council chambers. And what are becoming more and more of a regular occurrence, the Mayor of Invercargill, Tim Shadbolt, officiated over the granting of citizenship to 18 new New Zealanders. Those swearing the oath of taking an affirmation of allegiance to the Queen included 7 who were already her subjects, 6 British and 1 British Irish. Joining the Brits as brand new Kiwis were 4 South Africans, 4 Filipino, 1 from the People's Republic of China and another from Vietnam. Each were presented with a native tree by the Southland Multicultural Council. The Southland Oral History Project has been underway since 2006, capturing the life stories of hundreds of Southlanders. The project's received plenty of volunteer support in the region's towns, and now Invercargill-based volunteers are sought to interview a range of people in the city. Project coordinator Rebecca Arminston says volunteers are needed to conduct a couple of interviews per year for around 3 years.
We want to interview people about their life story, so what they remember about their family history, what their childhood, schooling was like, right through to the present day in some cases. Focus on activities that they were involved in or community things. Some people were heavily involved in churches or community groups, schools, and about people's employment, because especially things like farming has changed a lot over the years.
And so who's behind the project?
It was originally started in 2006 by the Rural Heritage Trust, and they worked closely with the Invercargill City Library and Archive, and have been pushing the project ever since.
What is the content or the material going to be used for in the future?
It's really a bank of information about what life was like in Southland, right through from the 1920s right through to the present day, how technology has changed. You know, farming used to be with horses and then tractors, and even tractors are progressing onto a range of other machineries these days. Farming's changed with farms that used to be belonging to families and they were passed down through the generations and everybody knew everybody. Nowadays, dairy farming has really changed the landscape of Southland.
And so where will this be housed, and how will people access it if they wanted to learn a bit more about who is around in Southland?
Yeah, well, we've got about 200 interviews so far, and they're all held here at the Invercargill Public Library and Archive. And people can come in, visit the archive and get access to listen to the interviews. You have to listen to them here at the library. You can't take them out, and we don't make copies. But if people want to use them for research, they can get permission to use extracts that way. I think it's really important to preserve the history of Southland, what people were like, how things were. You know, things change so quickly now with technology. What's happening today is completely different to what's happening, you know, tomorrow. And I think also for future generations, they're going to be able to hear the voices of their ancestors and hear the stories of what life was like for them.
So volunteers who might be interested in getting involved in this, you have some training coming up.
That's right. The first weekend of February we're starting training for this year, and we're looking at probably having more training later in the year because we've had such a great response.
And that brings us to a close. Weather is along next, followed by speedweight action on sport. From the news team, good night.